Hey, what's going on, everyone? Justin here at Trumful Reads. In this video, we're going to be going over some book recommendations of books that were authored by journalists or former journalists that are not political in nature. And this video was a requested topic type video, I guess you could say, for my NFN 2018 announcement video, where I went over the different challenges for the NFN 2018 readathon, which is a nonfiction based readathon. And someone wanted some recommendations for not anti-political, but just non-political books authored by journalism as there is a journalism-based challenge. So I just figured I'd go through some of the books that I own, that I've either read or I have on my shelves that I know were written by journalists. There's only a couple that I knew off the top of my head, but after looking kind of like through the dust jackets and stuff, I found that there's actually quite a few nonfiction books that are written by journalists. So let's just get started. I figure like kind of an easy one to start with would be books that are put out basically by National Geographic, because the authors of these types of books are obviously basically freelance writers and stuff for Nat Geo and stuff. I've read like Our Inviting Easter Parklands. I really enjoyed it. Another one that I own that I haven't read yet is From Mist and Stone, The History and Lore of the Celts and Vikings. Just sounded like a really cool interesting type book, but I would say give those a shot, especially if you like, obviously with Nat Geo, if you really enjoy like really good images and photographs, that'd be kind of a neat one to do. One from an actual journalist, and she became a professor of journalism, is What the Dog Knows by Kat Warren, and this is basically kind of a partial memoir about her training her dog to become basically a cadaver dog because she got really interested in that sort of thing, I guess. And also, sort of, there's a little bit of history and stuff of basically working dogs in general, whether that's like search and rescue or tracking or cadaver dogs and stuff. So I thought that was a really interesting, just a really interesting sort of like niche topic, I guess. If you have working dogs or you just want to learn more about them, that would be definitely a book to try out. All right, for another book, we got The Sports Gene, written by David Epstein, and he was a reporter or a journalist for Sports Illustrated, I believe, in ESPN magazine or something like that. And obviously, it's all about sports and athletics, and whether these like the top 1%ers of like the top 1% of like athletes, do they have sort of like genetic advantages in their like athletic performance and all that sort of stuff. And it won a ton of award. Let's see, Runner's World Book of the Year, Washington Post Notable Nonfiction Publishers Weekly, and William Hill Sports Book of the Year 2013. So it definitely won a bunch of awards. And like I said, this was written by a pretty famous Sports Illustrated journalist. I haven't read it yet, but I think I found that one at the thrift store for like 25 cents, and I thought, maybe I'll read it at some point. If you guys follow my channel at all, you guys know I really enjoy World War I history, and I found two books that were written by journalists or former journalists that also wrote World War I books, and one of the authors of The Wolf, I believe it's Richard Gilliatt, is an Australian journalist, and this book is all about basically a stealth commerce raider in World War I that basically went without radio communication for like a year and a half on the high seas and didn't lay into port or anything. And basically took a ton of prize vessels and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's basically that entire story of that, journey around all over the world, basically 64,000 miles without, like I said, laying into port, which is an incredible feat for World War I standards. And also my favorite World War I book, A World Undone by G.J. Meyer. Apparently G.J. Meyer used to be, or started his career as a journalist. He's written this book, which I think is like one of the best overviews of World War I out there. But he's also got a couple other books, like on the Tudors and the Borgias, I believe. So if you want to give him a shot, that'd be a good one for if you're into like history journalism. For another like kind of in the vein of history, or regular history, I guess you could say, we got Tony Peritet, who's like a freelance writer, journalist for a bunch of different newspapers and stuff. I read The Naked Olympics when I read like 3 Olympic books. Definitely enjoyed this one. Just a very easygoing, straightforward book. Learned quite a bit about basically the entire history of the ancient Olympics. And my next book that I'm going to read by him is The Sinner's Grand Tour, A Journey Through the Historical Underbelly of Europe. And as you can see, basically, I think he's like almost like a travel writer, which is kind of interesting. This is going to be basically looking at the Grand Tour. If you guys don't know what that is, basically, in the 1800s, when basically, the aristocratic gentry of like European society would go like all over Europe and stuff, the continent, doing a grand tour of like all the famous places, like Rome and Athens and Prague and stuff, I'm assuming. So I am assuming he went basically to all these places too, but like showed all of the dark secret stuff of these places and maybe what they did on the grand tour. So I thought that'd be kind of a cool, neat little book. One that I haven't read either is the Billionaires Vinegar. I picked this up at a library sale was it last month, I believe. And this is about the world's most expensive bottle of wine that I guess maybe Thomas Jefferson owned or something like that. But after looking through the dust jacket, he's a journalist for Food and Wine, GQ, and a couple other publications. So he's a former journalist. I don't know anything about Benjamin Wallace, but I might give this book a shot basically when I'm bored or something. Because I don't know anything about wine. I'm not really. I just, I saw it and figured why not buy a nice hardcover book about, Billionaires Vinegar. Alright, for kind of a silly one, I have The Brief History of Vice, How Bad Behavior Built Civilization by Robert Evans, and he's a writer for Crack.com, which you guys know what that is. You could basically just kind of guess what kind of book this is going to end up being. And there's a lot of how-tos on pretty insane stuff, so like I said in a couple other videos, do these kind of how-to manuals on making your own substances like at your own peril. Some are pretty benign, like like legit like coffee, like energy things, and like brewing your own beer and stuff. But there are a couple other fly agric stuff that's don't blame me basically if something happens. Let's go on to two more. This one I wasn't like a huge fan of, but I do like lifting weights, and it's Lift Fitness Culture, from the Naked Greeks and Acrobats to Jazzercise and Ninja Wars by Daniel Kunitz. And he's what does he write for? He writes for Vanity Fair and Harper's Magazine and New York Magazine and stuff. So he's a journalist. I guess he got really into CrossFit and stuff, and then wrote basically this book about basically the history of fitness. My only qualm with the book was he almost tries to almost subliminally message you into CrossFit by basically saying CrossFit always kind of supersedes all these other type of exercise programs and stuff, which I found kind of annoying. But it's just a really interesting topic. It's the only book I've ever read about exercise or lifting or anything like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. And the last one, I'll save this one as my favorite book that I've read, except maybe the World War I book, but two kind of different things. As a book written by journalists that I know of that I've read this year is Get Well Soon by Jennifer Wright, and the subtitle is History's Worst Plagues and the Heroes Who Fought Them. And Jennifer Wright's a pretty famous journalist for Popular Mechanics, Maxim, New York Post, Glamour, New York Observer, Cosmo, so tons of just magazines. But this was a really fun, just interesting read. Tons of humor, tons of pop culture references. But basically she goes through a lot of basically bad diseases and stuff that have happened throughout history, from, I think it started with the Antonine Plague in Rome, but all the way up to modern stuff, tuberculosis and polio and everything like that. And she basically goes how people screw up and stuff, and then also the subtitle is The Heroes Who Fought Them, and basically kind of the secret stories of, people that risk a lot just to try and cure diseases and stuff. But I learned a ton from this one, and it was funny, and like I said, just tons of pop culture references and stuff. Very witty, highly enjoyable, and this would be the one I would recommend if I had to just pick my favorite journalism book of the book written by a journalist of the year. She's also written one other book that I need to get a hold of too, and It Ended Badly: 13 of the Worst Breakups in History. So it's basically this kind of concept, I guess, but really famous breakups. So if it takes place from ancient times to modern times, there could be tons of potential candidates for that. But like I said, those are just a bunch of books that I know of off just from looking through the dust jackets, or that I knew of beforehand from my shelves, or that I read this year. I'm sure there was others. If you guys have recommendations on non-political type or non-pundit type basically journalism book, I keep saying journalism books written by journalists, leave some links down below. I'd be glad to find out some more about them. And also obviously other people are interested in this topic as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Tell me what you guys think, and always remember, whatever you end up reading, read victoriously.